We're going to stand to salute the flag, please. And if you could remain standing afterwards, we're going to have a moment of silence in honor of all the victims of the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Public announcements. Any public announcements anybody have?
I just have one. We don't have a meeting until the middle of January, correct, I believe? Right. So there is, this year we're going back to the Christmas tree pickup, and I just want to remind people, if they're watching this on TV, it's going to be on Saturday, January 12th, and Saturday, January 19th, and I believe they're going to pick it up right in front of your house. So just want to remind people about that. It's on the calendar that you received. It's probably on your refrigerator at home. So
can you put that on the website too, John?
It is on the website.
It is on the website.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
The whole holiday collection is on the website.
All right, great. So if anybody wants to see it, it's on the website.
It's on the website. It's posted with, it's on the message for the Board of Health, so it's all over.
Okay, great. Anybody else have any public announcements? No? Wait, no? Okay, action discussion items. Item number 1, discussion on status of revenues and expenses for fiscal year 2013.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I do have some handouts to discuss, and one of them that I think summarizes everything also well is the Department of Revenue tax rate recap, which is certifies our tax rate at $16.55, not $16.58. In addition to that, I have revenue and expenditure control reports.
You emailed those.
Wow.
You emailed those today, I think.
Did
right?
I? Yeah, but I figured.
I got mine, so I don't need one. But
who would be here, who wouldn't be here. That's the. And then I had mailed
that's
out
the expense
to
report.
the Finance
That's
Committee
the revenue one. Did you get
a
one?
complete set.
I didn't print them out, but I
take it.
Tom, did you get one?
I probably did, but I don't recall.
That's the revenue one.
Thank you.
I would like to start out by saying that public budgeting, to some degree, will never be an exact science, because there are things that we prepare for and actually budget well in advance of when the budget actually takes place. We're actually going through the budget process right now. Departments have to submit their budgets for FY14 December 19th. And we go through that whole process, and in May, we end up with an appropriated budget that really is an estimate of what we expect to receive for revenue and what we expect to have for expenditures. The revenue control report parameters, and I think the important piece of all of this is the last page, which shows that we're collecting revenue at about 44.99% or 45%, which is about where we should be. Our largest commitments do not occur with respect to excise tax until February. We don't, that's when it's issued. We don't start collecting that until March, and we do have stragglers in April as well. So you can imagine that we're trying to set a budget for FY14, projecting revenues that we have yet to receive the bulk of until March, on a budget that we're fashioning and submitting to the townspeople in April. So it is a bit of a challenge, from that perspective. However, if you look at our expense control report on the last page as well, you will see that we are at an expense control amount at 45.68%, which means that if you match up the overall revenue to expenditures at this point in time, we're just slightly below where we should be. And that's not an alarming statistic at this point. The percentage difference is less than 0.5%, or about 0.5%. We're at 45% on revenue, and we're expending at 45.68. So we're at 0.69% difference, less than a percent. And like I said, our largest commitments are yet to be received, yet to be issued, yet to come in. So I think at this point, from a revenue to expenditure perspective, I think we're in fairly decent shape, at least from my perspective. And then I'd like to also talk, unless there's any questions about revenue and expenditures at this point.
Do you have any concern going forward as a result of the 9C cuts, whether or not we'll meet our expectations?
I'll talk about 9C. We're going to take 9C right out of the budget, right up front.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Go ahead, Ken.
If I just had a couple questions on some of the expenses, some of the percentages, maybe some of the budgets, and I don't want to spend too much time on them, but just, do you have concerns in any of those budgets? I noticed a couple of them seem to be a little high. I know you mentioned the town council, we're probably going to overexpend that one.
I'm concerned about town council right now, and I'm concerned about trash at this point. And I can explain the trash scenario if you're interested at this point as well.
Yeah.
The trash scenario is a little interesting because it does have its own characteristics. The sheets that I'm going to pass out deal with the waste solution analysis at this point.
Thank you, sir.
If I was to take a look at this analysis, the first page that I would like to draw your attention to is the page that shows the 127, 157 deficit. That's the waste solution analysis. There's a couple of issues with this. The last bill that we received had a significant increase from, that's the November bill, from $65,000 to $89,499. Much of that increase was due in part to the condominium charges. Now, the company charged us 3/4 of the half a year that's due us in December. When we did an analysis, the accounting office did an analysis of the billing. The condo charges of $3,936.09 were charged as of August, September, October, and November. In addition to that, they charged us probably an additional $13,000. So that number needs to be reduced down by $13,000. It was an overcharge on the part of the contractor to the town. The drivers that appear to be happening here with respect to the charges are twofold. Again, we go back to when we estimated this budget. We had a chart that showed that we were estimating a reimbursement of $94,980, which was $10 a barrel. The actual reimbursement came in at $13 a cart at $61,000 and change. So the difference right there is about $30,000. The other difference, obviously, in this scenario was the cost for the condos as a whole, because we never calculated that in the budget. Not only did we not calculate it, but town meeting did not support an amendment to the budget to fund it. However, we decided, both as a town and as a board, to do the condo pickup and that is obviously not an issue at this point. But those are two differences that add up to about $70,000 between the cart reimbursement and the condos. We estimated the tonnage to come in at 3,271 tons for a total cost of $215,000. We are now estimating that cost to be $218,000. So we're off by about 45 tons on the estimate based on the program at curbside. There is also some additional costs that we are now incurring that we did not anticipate when the trash program went into effect. We had spec'd out at the schools that we would have pickup by dumpster. However, the custodians cannot put the trash from the school into the containers, into the trash containers, the dumpsters that we have, or that have been put out by the company. And as a result of that, they're picking up the barrels like they are at curbside, which was not part of the original agreement. So there was a modification of that. That was another $7,500 increase. So when you add up, these types of increases that weren't anticipated or expected, you get somewhere close to about $100,000 or so when you add them all up, or close to that. So the difference, I think, will be from January through June 30th, when the condominiums go to a more restricted capacity, very similar to what we have for the residents. You'll see an additional tonnage drop between January through June 30th. And that will hopefully take care of some of the discrepancies in relationship to the trash costs. I do anticipate that there will be a need to transfer some money. I do not know what that total cost would be at this point. The $127,157 is high. It's a worst-case scenario, but we do anticipate that that number will come down. The $13,000 taken off as a result of the overcharge. We still have to negotiate with the hauler in regards to some of the other costs that he is proposing that we may or may not agree with in the final analysis. So we're supposed to be meeting, with him this week, but we're monitoring the trash issue. Obviously, town council is yet another issue. I think next year for the budget, we're going to propose probably around $89,000. There was an additional charge this year for special counsel as it related to my contract, and I think that came in at about all said and done, about $8,000 or $9,000 when it was all said and done. So that's another cost that obviously we didn't anticipate at the time. Any questions on the trash?
Ken, you also.
Trash, just, it says we receive revenue for 1 month, August, for recycling credits.
That's correct.
And we're looking for more, they're not paying those?
We are looking for more, but I will tell you that when we fashioned this budget, we did not take into account any revenue from the program. Mm-hmm. We were going to wait and see for the first year how well we did with actual receipts. Right now, if I'm to look at the yellow paper benchmark, which is what the contract is written towards, I think there's a fluctuation of $10 plus or minus, and so I don't anticipate that there's going to be a significant amount of revenue, but I do think we could meet the $25,000 threshold that we anticipated.
Tom?
Yeah, John, just in the way of the condos, just to play back, as I recall, there were meetings ahead of the annual town meeting. And I guess I'd characterize them as, the condo people came in and they've been upset that, the trash was taken away, the 5 condo units that had it. As I recall, you had made a commitment to them to pick up their trash through
December
December 31st
31st.
of this year,
That's correct.
regardless of what we did to continue it.
That's correct.
And then, as I recall, I think Mr. Coyle made a motion to cap the amount that we spend on condo pickup at $45,000. So I guess.
40,000.
What's that?
It was 40.
Was it 40?
I don't recall
All
what
right,
it's
40
somewhere
is
around
is a
there.
better number. But the question is, when we start picking them up in addition to our going past December 31st, do you anticipate that it would be $40,000 to do that? for
That's
those
correct.
five? Okay.
For the total year.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at approximately, if you look at your sheet, you'll see at the top, the condo is 16,000 and 30 for trash pickup and 3680, for recycling pickup. That's about $19,680. A little less than the 20,000
Okay,
that was voted.
right.
And you're absolutely correct. There's also another piece that I did not, when I anticipated this budget, if you look at July on your spreadsheet, you will see an $80,000, $695 figure. I anticipated a 12-month budget, not an 11-month budget, because the barrels came in late. We didn't start the program. In July, we started it in August as a result of that. There is an increase in what we anticipated, another $20,000 or about 15,000, 20,000 additional cost that is also added on to get to that 127 number.
Yeah, I just want to make sure for public edification that when they hear $127,000 overspend on the trash budget,
It's not strictly the condos.
It's not the condos,
No.
yeah. And I just want to make sure
Yeah,
the
the
public
condos are
knows
part
that
of it, but right. you're
We
right.
committed to 40,000 to
Mm-hmm.
make them whole for the balance of this fiscal year.
And I think is, in a comment with respect to the condos itself, I do think that number will gradually and continue to go down. The numbers that we are showing right now for the program itself, if I was to look at where we stood with tonnage, because we go back to 2010 on tonnage for recycling and trash, we are trending significantly downward in relationship to tonnage for trash, and we're trending significantly upward in relationship to recycling. So the program, as I have indicated right from the very beginning, is working. It's saving the town money. However, there were some miscalculations or calculations that could not be anticipated when we established the program, and that's causing the variance that we have between what we have budgeted versus what, and of course, there was a $402,000 cost for the barrels themselves. And
I think the other point that's important to share with the public is, I think last year we spent a touch over $1 million for waste collection for the town. That would be for fiscal year ending June 30th. This year, even with the overspend, we should be at about 800 and some odd thousand. Is that what you're projecting?
the projection for FY14, I think you have that there in your notes. It's 808,000, or? I don't have that sheet with
All
me.
right, but I guess the point is 800 versus 1 million. You're in the
1,046,000
200,000 plus
Yeah.
category savings. I think that's important to share with
Yeah.
the public also.
Yeah, and I think the program, is working. I think that there's been a lot of positive feedback on the program lately. We are not picking up for Christmas, so make sure you're on a one-day delay, so if anyone has their trash out early on Washington Street, take it back in and put it out on the right day.
You.
Okay, that,
I had a couple, just a question,
Okay, go
couple of
ahead, I'm
questions on
sorry.
the expense control report, John. As far as the unemployment budget goes, do we have folks on, we must have folks on unemployment, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Is that,
the largest employment calculation that we have is with the schools.
okay?
We have a small number of people still on unemployment. We're looking, that's trending positively, which means that we expect to have about a $14,000 surplus in that line
No,
item.
okay, because right now, you've expended almost 63% of it.
That's
according
correct.
to this, but you
Yeah.
expect to have a surplus still?
We do.
Okay. And the other one was the liability insurance expense. That's about an 86% has been expended at this point in time.
Well, we expend when we get billed, and we get billed quarterly in certain
Okay.
items, and we get billed yearly on others. So you may see a fluctuation in that line item, only because of when the bills are
You're not
due.
anticipating a shortfall?
No.
Anybody else?
The only other department I saw that seemed sort of high was the highway department, that 62% of their budget was spent, I think, so, I mean, are you concerned about that at all, or?
I had a talk with Kennan in regards to, his budget. He does not anticipate he's going to need any additional money, but that's at this point. Who knows? Obviously, what's not calculated in any of these scenarios is winter snow events.
Right.
What we're going to do is we're going to raise whatever the deficit will be on the recap with respect to snow and ice, which will reduce our free cash number. But we've been coming in free cash. In FY, the year before last, not this past year, but last year, we estimated we had $1 million in free cash. This year it's $748,000. So our free cash number is about where it should be for a community of this size. So I think we're doing fairly well with respect to free cash. I think fire is going to come in a little bit below budget, but not much. We made that adjustment, as you remember, from what we estimated initially at town meeting, and we got a better number as far as salaries and the collective bargaining agreement was concerned. So I think at this point, there are some areas of the budget that we have to watch, but healthcare is not one of those areas. Pensions, I think, are going to be okay. I don't think we're going to have a pension issue as far as funding is concerned at this point. We do not have, or we did not have, that many individuals retiring. We will next year, as we anticipate there will be at least 2 or 3 firefighters that may potentially retire over the term of this next contract. And obviously, those numbers will hit our pension costs at that point in time. So, other than that, is there any other how do you like this report?
I think
it's
these are
a far improvement.
Very helpful. Very
Yeah, from where we were.
Yes.
And we're gonna, I talked to the town accountant about issuing this electronically to you monthly. We're gonna give you a link to go to that would give you this information, and you can just look at it and print out whatever you want at your leisure.
Mr. Chairman, I just have
Yes.
one other question. You brought up the snow and ice deficit account. Does the board still have to vote to go over the $100,000 that I think we budgeted this past year?
No.
It's no longer a requirement? I thought the board had it.
Yeah, I think if you're running, don't you come back to us?
For snow and ice? I think we can naturally expend snow and ice. What we have to come back to are intermunicipal transfers at the end of the
Right.
fiscal year. I'll check on that. I don't think we do.
I didn't think they changed that, but one thing that I was curious about is, my personal opinion is, I think we upped it over the years. It used to be 50, something unreasonable, and I think we brought it up to 100,000, which is still probably not reasonable. But I did read something to the effect that once you bring it up to a certain level,
You have to keep it.
global warming takes off. You can't bring it down to something, more reasonable. So my only point is, I wouldn't want to see in this year's budget that we up that if we need to spend the money, we will do it, but,
Well, I agree with you. I don't want to get into a situation where if I look at the last 10-year average, and that's what we look at for budgeting purposes, when we look at what we have spent over the last 10 years, and I think that we're looking upwards of, 235 to close to $275,000 for a number that we should budget each year. Now, if we're over budget, we can obviously transfer that money at the end of the fiscal year from snow and ice, but we have to budget that dollar amount each and every year thereafter.
That's correct.
So if we go to
That's the
250, we're going to have to budget that.
Right.
However, that may not necessarily be a bad thing for us, because it'll reduce, at the other end, it'll reduce our overage, should we have an overage in that snow and ice account. So we're not looking to raise on the recap 200,000 or 300,000, but probably 100. It cuts less into our free cash. It gives us a good free cash number. And at the same time, it allows us to budget more appropriately for what we think would occur. But if the Republicans get elected, they could really get rid of global warming altogether, and we'd be in great shape. It'll be snowing down in Florida.
I think originally, 3 years ago,
I think
it was
it's the- by the way, John, I think it's the opposite. I think the Republicans are going for
They're all
global
for-
warming.
they're all for global
And the
warming,
Democrats
exactly.
are going for more snow, so.
And I think when I came on 3 years ago, it was budgeted at $80,000.
Yeah.
I think, John, was it last year? You bumped it up to 100, or maybe
I
the year
bumped it up to
before.
100. We were at 80 for a long time. And
There
I
was one
want to
year
get.
there, we were about $300,000 in deficit. so-
Well,
Yeah.
to be specific, Andy, in 2011, which was the heavy snow year, we put over
Yeah, it was
500,000
a
on the
big number.
recap,
Exactly,
because we're getting snow every other day, so.
big number, yeah.
The next item that I wanted to talk about was the tax rate increase and the 2.5 rate increase, and where we stand with regards to the tax rate. Now, you have the tax, do you have the tax classification information? Did I give you that?
You
I think I did.
give us the rate.
The recap, right?
So accompany that tax class information, I'm going to give you our debt exclusion schedule, as well as a very succinct explanation regarding,
Succinct means short, right?
hopefully. Oh, you gotta give me one.
Everybody's a comic.
Yeah, that, the extra one. You need that one too? I'm all
You
set.
need that one?
Yeah, you get two.
There should be two, there should be two there.
You want, need the other one?
No,
No.
What I wanted to explain to the board is this whole issue of if it's Prop 2.5 and we can increase by 2.5 every year, then why is our tax rate increase 3.5%, 3.8%, whatever that number is? And it's a very simple explanation. And of course, the taxable valuation has gone down. In this, from FY12 to FY13, our tax valuation went from $1,766,000,000 to $1,694,000, a 4.072996% reduction. However, the town has a certain amount of money, and every town has a certain amount of money that they have to raise each and every year. And so Prop 2.5 allows us to increase that levy limit by that 2.5%, which in the allowable levy column will show $625,409. In addition to that, which is above and beyond the 2.5% increase, is obviously the new growth. And we budgeted $200,000 in new growth for FY 12 or 13, FY 12. We came in at 245,000, FY 13, I'm sorry. So we have an allowable levy limit of $25,886,789, which shows a 3.479% increase. In addition to that, what you have to keep in mind is that the town recently went out for a debt exclusion on the windows at the Woodsdale School. Now, we're also going out on a debt exclusion, and actually voted for a debt exclusion on the study for the schools as to.
Feasibility study.
Yeah, feasibility study. That feasibility number has not hit the books yet. However, the Woodsdale windows have. Next year, and in your debt schedule, which I wanted to show you, in FY 12, we have a sewer Phase 4 that comes due next year of $573,591. We also have the Griffin's Dairy land purchase, which comes due at the end of 13. So for next year, that's an additional $69,063. You add those two numbers up, next year, that levy limit, I mean, not the levy limit, but the debt exclusion amounts are going to go down by about $660,000. That's going to reduce your overall percentage increase to well under 2.5% for FY14. So as you realize, the year before last, the debt number, the actual percentage increase between our tax rate, our tax bills, was 1.8 or 2.8%. This year it was 3.5%, 3.48%. And the difference, and the reason why it's above 2.5, it's because of the debt exclusions, new growth, as well as any incurred debt that we have to pay from one fiscal year to the next that may have been excluded in prior years. So while we're bringing on new debt, next year we have additional debt coming off. So from a financial perspective, I think next year the town's going to be in very good shape with regard to what that percentage increase will be from FY13 to FY14's actual tax rate. And don't forget, in the valuation period, as you probably well know, if you sit on the Board of Assessors, we're always 12 months behind in our valuation on properties in town. Those are something to look forward to in relationship to the tax rate. But to think that we're spending and that's driving up the tax rate beyond 2.5, we cannot do that without an operational override. And I do not support, have not supported, and will not support an operational override to sustain a level service of government. I don't think it's needed. We have additional capacity. It's not a lot. We got an additional 6,000 in capacity that we could raise to that limit, but we have not raised to the limit of Proposition 2.5 since I've been here. And we're trying to keep the tax bills from fluctuating significantly. And if people are concerned about the tax bill, then you shouldn't be voting for debt exclusions. That's the bottom line. The bottom line here, folks, is that debt exclusions are driving, the percentage increase beyond 2.5.
Questions, Tom?
Yeah, I just think, John, that's an excellent explanation. I think that's where I really didn't see it when you looked at the, I'll call it the summary tax recap sheet. But I think, again, for the public, the over $200 million of debt was incurred in previous periods. That is, I understand, a treasurer-collector. The town authorized him to borrow, but he elected not to borrow in that period because one of the projects that come due, we spent the money on the windows, and I think in anticipation of the school feasibility, I think he went out in this fiscal period to borrow the money. Hence, that's when you see it on the recap sheet. Because I think a lot of people say, well, what do you mean debt exclusion? I didn't vote any debt exclusion for this, fiscal year. It was in previous years that was done.
That's correct. And, once you vote that debt exclusion, if it's a 15-year debt exclusion, you're paying for it in each of those years until it's paid off. But the good part about it is that you have two very large projects that are coming off. Well, one very large and one not so large.
Okay, that's a good point. My second question, though, is how about other things that may be coming on? Do you anticipate that we'll need to address the landfill situation? Because I know that's been lingering out there, and there's a lot of different plans there, but it looked to me like the minimal one was $3 million or so.
3.8 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be a great project, if I had time to work on it, it would be a great project to try to get a solar company to actually pay for the closure, along with the unsuitable soil material. I think there's a lot of communities across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that are getting their landfill closed for next to nothing, in turn for leasing the land to a solar energy company. And the technology is becoming so advanced that they're using solar blankets on some of these landfills rather than the actual structures, which are very heavy. And so you have to cap the landfill, and it may cost you more money to cap it to sustain the type of weight that you need on the landfill to allow that to allow us to receive some sort of revenue to offset our closure costs. But many communities are moving in the solar energy area, and they're doing so for the sole purpose of closing landfills. So that's an option that the town will have to explore after I leave.
I guess my question was more, are we under any sort of time frame
Yes, we
to
are.
get it done? I mean, or we can keep on kicking the tire down the road?
We're looking at FY 15 or FY 16 for an actual closure cost
Right.
at this point. So we're a little ways off, but at the same time, you have to also remember, we may or may not have a school project coming on. We may or may not want to think about the actual road conditions in the town, the infrastructure conditions in the town. There's a lot of things that over the years have really we haven't paid much attention to. You know, and I think I lost a couple of fill-ins on a couple of roads, you know, in Abington. It's just a matter of time before you're going to have to spend some significant money just to maintain, you know, a certain level of road condition in the town. And that's, again, in the perfect world, we would put money aside for that. But obviously, we haven't had the fiscal ability to do that. You know, and lastly, what I'd like to say is that I think that when I came to the town, there were significant financial challenges that faced this community. We overcame them. I think we've done a very good job in managing those types of issues. I think that there is a process in place, whether I am here or somebody else is here, that will allow the community and allow the Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, and the finance team to stay ahead of those issues. The database of information that we now have on our financial budgets are so significant that we should never fall behind in relationship to being able to project what's going to happen from one budget cycle to the next. And I'll give you a great example. This year, we are going to input all of our information in the KVS financial software program that we spent money on. Well, I shouldn't say we spent money on it. We spent money on it years ago, but never utilized it. And we had to pay for an upgrade, which cost us $32,000. And we now have these budget modules, which are absolutely phenomenal. It gives us the ability to sit down in a working environment, roll up our sleeves and say, okay, you know, if we were to reduce the budget by 2%, what would that look like on a department-by-department basis? And because it's interrelational, it gives us the ability to, you know, say to the police, we think, you know, based on last year's budget, this year's budget, your trend in expenditures, that your percentage increase should only be about 2% or 3%, or there should be a reduction of 1% or 2% from your budget. And rather than looking at the simplistic fashion of we want to maintain core services, we can now dissect the budget to the point where we can get a department by department impact of what that reduction would be and how it would play out during the fiscal year. So I think that, you know, from a manager's perspective, that is a significant improvement over what we had. When I got here, we had very little. And we tried to build that up and provide as much information to the residents as possible. Next year's budget is going to be above and beyond what we were ever able to provide you in previous budgets.
Are we done with the upgrades of that, so we can all the computers talking to each other now? I know that was a big issue. where
The
we did-
department heads are putting their budgets in now, yeah.
Good.
It's all done electronically.
Yep.
And all they do is they don't even have to add, subtract, multiply, divide, they just put a number in, and the system does it automatically.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Now, I think the final issue was that this whole issue about, salary positions in town. And I know that there is some concern that we are spending more than we have in salary, and that's driving up costs. That is obviously not the case, and I can tell you that recently we've made some adjustments in salaries, but we used money from existing salary line items within the budget. 99.9% of the salaries that we have adjusted, and I'm going to give you a copy of those at this point. And these are recent adjustments. All have come from within interdepartmental salaries from within the budget. So it's going from a salary expenditure to a salary expenditure. We're not taking and adding more to the salary base than what currently exists and has been appropriated. So I'm going to give you this. And I am almost complete with a total salary budget number for FY13 and FY14. What I will do is I will provide that to you at the next meeting. So this is a snapshot of where we are with respect to what we recently did. And I'm working on providing a more comprehensive approach to what that number is across the budgets, across everyone's budget. Whether it was a salary increase for collective bargaining agreement or a non-collective bargaining increase. Because, salaries are 80% of the budget. And I can go over any of these.
So are these for particular individuals or
The-
a group of individuals? Or?
Well, with respect to the Board of Health, it's with the Board of Health agent. The accountant, it's with the assistant clerk, and the town accountant.
Both?
Yeah. And building, it's with the building inspector, veteran agent, and planning was just the planning clerk. And the selectman's office was Nancy with some of it, and there was the Board of Selectmen appointed Dory Jameson as the municipal hearings officer for the town of Abington some time ago. And in that statute requires a stipend for a municipal hearing officer, which I didn't know about, which was brought to my attention. So what we did was we took the stipend, the stipend money is paid for from fines, so it really doesn't hit the budget. The municipal hearings officer hears a case. In that case, may or may not have a fine associated with it. Those fines go into this municipal hearing officer account, and it pays for the municipal hearing officer hearings. And that's part of the municipal hearing statute that requires that to happen. So that's where we stand at this point with these.
Is there an overall percentage or an average percentage
I
of what each one
I
of
can
these
work
are?
that out for you.
Could you do that, please?
I will.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mike?
Just two comments. How many municipal hearings occur? Obviously, it varies from year to year, but on average?
Well, I think you're gonna see a lot more as a result of the statute, not statute, the bylaw that was recently passed, that falls under the municipal hearing officer's domain. But I think I don't know, you know what, I don't know what that number is.
Did you find out?
I can find out.
And then, so it would seem to me that some of these positions here were recently unionized. And we also had a personnel board in effect. I don't know, you know, it seemed to me, I have no problem with the unionization, but it seems like now they're a bargaining unit, unless I'm incorrect on that. And
Well, yeah,
now you're
and
taking individuals
I
and,
can elaborate on that in executive session. I can tell you that what I have been told and what I anticipate is that there will not be, you know, salary increases for any of these positions until FY15. So that you'll have a 3-year agreement. That'll be the establishment of the organization, but there won't be any salary adjustments in it for 3 years.
Any other questions? Ken?
No, you can go first this time.
Mr. Chairman, I just think that I'd be a lot more comfortable, and I wouldn't challenge the monies in the budget, but feel a lot more comfortable in looking at this by position. You know, the treasurer collector on June 30th, 2012 was making X. And now the treasurer collector, I'm just picking on the treasurer, I don't know whether they got a raise or not,
can
but
do
you
that.
just pick somebody. I think that would be more meaningful, at least to me as a member of the board.
And what I'll do is we'll put the percentage piece on it.
Well, you could do that, or we
Yeah.
could do it, yeah, I mean, that would be helpful.
Well, that's what was asked for, so I can include that. So you want the salary from X, the salary to Y, and the percentage?
Correct.
X, okay,
Okay.
we can do that.
The other comment I have, or question, is what I would call employee benefit increases. And a couple in dealing with your office early on raised my eyebrows a little bit. I guess the first was granting an employee an extra week's vacation. And I'm just curious, you know, I clearly would support that individual, as I know that individual did go above and beyond, but I just think that, for me, it sets a bad precedent to do that. It raises questions in my mind, is that something now that carries on from year to year to year? It raises questions in my mind now, will other employees look for that benefit? That's one example. The other is, I think I saw that there was, I guess, a feeling that, you know, we were paying employee stipends. And what we did is we took those stipends and rolled them all into the base pay. And again, some of them just raised my eyes a little bit, like, if we're paying somebody a vacation buyback because they didn't use that vacation, I guess I'm wondering why we would put that into somebody's base pay. Does that employee go back and they get 3 weeks less vacation? Or the next year, if they take 4 or 5, is that, you know, coming off? It just doesn't, you know, make sense to me. So, I mean, I'd like to see that in addition to this, is which one of these positions, and it wouldn't only be in the Office of Selectmen, but I think there were some questions I had in Highway, Police, and Fire. I think it might be beneficial, again, from a full public disclosure, because as I think I mentioned to the chairman, and I think you, John, I think there's a sense around town that we're giving away, and I would say we, the Board of Selectmen, are giving away these big increases that aren't in line with what's happening in the industry, not in line with the economic conditions. And I just think it behooves us as a team, as a group, to share with the public what we did and the rationales to do that, why we did that.
I can respond to, let me respond to the vacation issue first and foremost. That vacation does not tie into something that the individual gets every year. That was a one-time, 1-week vacation incentive for doing the work that was done. And I think I hope what it does from a private sector perspective and also from a public sector perspective is it encourages people to go above and beyond the call of duty. knowing that there will be some kind of recognition. It doesn't always have to be money. And it doesn't increase our liability with respect to vacation, because that individual can only carry over a certain amount of vacation, so it has to be used. If it's not used, it's not provided next year. And so I think, and I know that we had discussed this in email exchanges, I think that, you know, that again is a management decision, and I would say that if that is something you don't want to do going forward, that's fine, we will not do it. But I do think that it provides an incentive that give people the ability to work later, stay, do things that normally they wouldn't do, knowing that, and it's not something that was done just once. It's been done long before I got here in the town, and it's not, John D'Agostino did not create this. It's been around for a long time, and it's either a day off or an afternoon off, or, you know, something for what, you know, whatever purpose, but it's not something that I created and just implemented now. You know, I have to say that.
Can I just ask a question? So it doesn't get carried forward to the next year? You reward somebody for that particular year?
They have to use it.
Then that goes away?
Because they lose, they only can carry over a certain amount of vacation time, either under the personnel bylaw or under the union contract. So they can't carry it over forever, and it doesn't tie into carrying it over forever. And I have to say this, and I think it's important from at least my perspective to basically say that when I came here, we had some difficult financial times, and it's too bad that the level of scrutiny now wasn't the level of scrutiny 4.5 years ago. It's a shame, because I think that maybe some of those issues could have been averted in relationship to the massive layoffs that occurred. Be that as it may, the issue today is that we are in sound financial health, that the decisions that I have made, I don't believe would ever put this town in a negative financial light going forward. We have put in so many different policies and procedures as far as financial accounting, financial oversight is concerned, that we can never go back to that period of time 4.5 years ago, where there was simply just no oversight whatsoever in the financial operations of this community. And I think that what you will see, and we're going to come to the board before I leave with a series of policies that we want you to buy into, that are going to become part and parcel to not only the policies of the Board of Selectmen, but the policies of the Chief Financial Officer in relationship to how monies are accounted for, how we input information into our weekly payroll, to how we handle cash, if we handle cash at all. And some of that existed, but it was never tied into a neat document, and it's going to be. And as a result of that, you're going to see a higher level of transparency, not only from the board's perspective, but also from the public's perspective, because these policies will be hopefully put on the internet, on the website, so that people could see exactly how their tax dollars are being handled. And I think that's very important, that the residents need to know that, you know, we're not in a willy-nilly manner accounting for things. And I can tell you that when I got here, there was that perception that you know, money was missing or something had happened. And no money's missing. There's never any money missing. It may not have been accounted for in an appropriate manner, but it was never missing. And these policies will eliminate all of that kind of perception. And people can go to those policies, take a look at it, and hold the employees accountable, because they'll have as much information as you will have in relationship to what those policies are and how it should be handled. So I think that we are moving in a direction that will certainly keep us financially sound, hopefully for years to come.
I think those policies would be fantastic. Do you have a date certain when you want to get those to us?
I think
or-
probably, we're planning to do it the middle of January.
Great.
Middle to the end of January. We're still reviewing.
We'll hold you to the end of January, how's that?
Yeah, probably the end of January. But I will tell you that also, in addition to that, we have our management letter. And for the first time, management and the auditor sat down and went over every aspect of the findings that were established by the auditors. Some of them are problems that have been ongoing for years. Those are all going to be cleaned up. Anything that we have as a finding going forward will be addressed in the policies and procedures that we will establish. And going forward, beyond this year's audit letter, next year's audit letter should be a lot cleaner than this year's. And that, is due in part to the financial accounting system that we now have, which we didn't have before. The fact that we have these policies that are going to be set, approved by the Board of Selectmen. It's also going to deal with where we should deposit our money. Does the Board of Selectmen and the town residents and the finance team feel comfortable putting $10 million in a bank that has a limit of $250,000? Or should we put our money in other areas? And I can tell you from a management perspective that all of our money is well handled by the collector treasurer. And Leo does a wonderful job, and most of our money is secured at 100%. And that's unusual in some communities. But those are the types of discussions that we need to have with you, and you need to be able to relate back to us as to whether or not you think that you feel comfortable with that. And if you don't, we'll make the changes that are necessary so that everybody understands what our policies and procedures are in relationship to how our money is handled, how cash is handled. For example, you can't have the same person collecting cash that then balances the cash at the end of the day. So those types of things need to be written down in a manner that allows people to follow them. We'll go through a series of examinations with the different departments to see how that happens, to make sure that the policies are being adhered to. We need an inventory control and asset management plan. We're putting that together as well. That'll give us the ability to barcode all of our property, so that the property in the Board of Health is identified, scanned, coded, and put on a sheet. Same thing with the Highway Department, water, sewer, so that inventory is controlled in a manner that gives a level of accountability not only to the administration, but also to the townspeople whose tax dollars paid for that inventory or that equipment. And, so those are the things that we're going to work on and develop a comprehensive policy for, that I think is going to give the board and the townspeople the satisfaction that they need to know that we are handling, we are entrusted with your funding, and we are handling it in the most appropriate manner possible.
Where do we stand with the audit, John? The annual audit is?
The management letter is pretty much complete. We're reviewing it today. We expect to probably have a January, February audit meeting with the auditors like we did last year. And it would be a great idea to time that with the policies, financial policies, so that we can, have the auditors here during that discussion. And they can help you and guide you in relationship to, this is a good idea, this is not a good idea, I think your money should be more diverse, or it should be held in certain areas. Investment strategies, how we invest our monies. We're very conservative on how we do that now. By popular impression, it's not under Leo's mattress at the house. Pretty close to it, but not quite there. It's It's very secure. So all of those things are happening in a manner and in a fashion that I think will build trust in the financial operations of the town by the residents.
Anything else? Kim?
I have no problem with the town manager if they feel that someone is worthy, deserves a raise, is underpaid, worked extra, wants an extra day or an extra week's vacation. I have absolutely no problem with that. You, according to the charter, you're the CFO, you're the management decision. Absolutely no problem with that. The problem that I have sitting here, working in town, dealing with all the residents, is having to find out about it from them. That's the issue that I have, the main issue. I mean, you say residents need to know, and I agree with you 100%, but we need to know too. Because the way I feel is, if someone came up to me and said, oh, such and such got this, a stipend or an extra week, then I would be able to answer the question, say, well, John brought it before us, and you don't, the town manager doesn't need to bring it before us.
Yeah.
But as a courtesy to let us know, I think this person deserves this because, and then would all more than likely be on the same page.
And I apologize for that. I'm sorry.
Because this whole thing could have been eliminated, this whole sheet, and, just, where's this money coming from? If it was just a simple, this is what I'm planning on doing, if anybody has a concern, let me know. Because sometimes you look like an idiot out there.
I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah, you should not.
That's the only point I'm trying to make.
Yep.
So.
I apologize for
I
that.
look like an idiot most of the time anyway, so I don't need any help.
I can do a good job myself, so maybe we shouldn't team up.
We all can, yeah, that's exactly right.
And so I apologize for that, and I will provide you with the information you need so you feel comfortable with this. And the issue that you need to know is that these types of adjustments are not impacting, the budget. The money has been appropriated in those salary line items that have, for example, when we hired the town accountant, at $10,000 less than what the outgoing town accountant was getting. We hired the IT manager at about $8,000 less than what the other. So what we're doing is we're not looking at the salary number and saying, okay, this is your new salary for somebody coming in. And so even with the town accountant's adjustment, along with the clerk in the town accountant's office, those two numbers are probably still about 5,000, 6,000 less than what the outgoing town accountant was making for both positions combined in the increase. So I tried to act responsible. You're absolutely correct, Mr. Coyle, and I will make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Any other questions? Concerns? Okay.
I have
Anything
some
else?
exciting news.
Oh, you're going to just bring us up to date as far as the 9C cuts and what you thought?
Oh, the 9C
impact
cuts,
of
I'm
those
sorry,
would
the
be on
9C
budget.
cuts.
Then you can tell us your exciting news.
The 9C cuts, it's a total of $16,900. And that 9C cut number is coming from health insurance.
9C cuts for people out there in TV land and myself mean,
They're mid-year cuts that were imposed by Governor Patrick, probably at the worst time that you can impose 9C cuts regardless, and whether you're Secretary of Administration or Finance or not. It's a god-awful thing to go through. Yeah. No one cares. But anyway, it's a mid-year cut as a result of an over-aggressive calculation of revenue that they're not making. And as a result of that, they're cutting back. And what they're looking at is they're taking local aid away from us. The unrestricted local aid number for the town was $1,663,000. 1% of that is the $16,638 that we have to cut. That number is coming directly from health insurance savings.
Thank you. Okay, now you can tell us your good news.
Well, tomorrow we're going to be announced by the Biotech Council as being a bio-ready community. We join the towns of Middleborough and West Boylston and Hopkinton, who has improved their rating. Now, what this means for the town is that we have the ability to go to biotech-type companies and hopefully try to get them to locate on Route 18. But as a bio-ready community, we have bylaws that are in place, and we have a favorable business climate environment that a biotech company would look at and want to move here. And so what hopefully this will do over time is something that's not going to solve our budget problems tomorrow, but it's going to give us the impetus that we need to begin to look at companies who may have an interest in moving to the town of Abington, which is not too far from Boston. It's, once they build that connector to Route 3, it's going to open up a tremendous amount of opportunity and hopefully reduce our percentage of reliance on property tax from residential and shift some of that to industrial development, commercial. So it's going to be announced tomorrow. There's, I think, 72 bio-ready communities of the 352?
65.
51 cities and towns. Wow, what happened to Weymouth? That's not a community? Okay. It may never become a community. But anyway, 351 cities and towns, 72 bio-ready rated communities, and we're one of them. So I think that's a pretty good shot in the arm for the town, and something we could look forward to over the next several years.
Okay, item number 3, town manager report.
Didn't it say short town manager?
Well,
report?
that may have been the town.
That was
manager
it. That was, you know, I just wanted to talk about the.
report. Item number 4, public comment. Is there any public comment? Mr. Buckley?
Oh, boy, this can't be good.
I don't know, he's smiling, so it might be good.
Well, he's always smiling.
Brief public comment, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the time. You finished, are you finished?
I don't know, it depends on what you have to say.
We'll see. Depends on what you have to say.
The 9C cuts I found a little, is a separate subject, mind-boggling. I mean, that's a rounding area, $9 million out of the total package. But anyway, John Buckley, 333 Colonel Hunt Drive. And I'm here to solicit your assistance, gentlemen, on the issue of gun control. And what I would ask your consideration for is to send a letter to our new Congressman Stephen Lynch, and ask him to support the imposition of more restrictive controls on gun control, and including, but not limited to, the ban on sale of assault weapons and semi-automatic handguns, a background check for all gun purchases, including private sales and sales at gun shows, and a ban on high-capacity magazine clips. The ban on the sale of assault weapons was, as you know, in place on the federal level for 10 years, from 94 to 2004, and failed to be renewed. But given the current climate of the matter of Newtown, Connecticut, and the rest of the horrific massacres across the United States, I would beseech the Board of Selectmen to step up and support the imposition of more strict gun controls, and do that through a letter to Congressman Lynch.
Any questions of Mr. Buckley? Yes, Tom.
So, John, this would just be more assault weapons. It wouldn't impact the ordinary hunter, or, you know, somebody that is responsible, you know, with guns. You know, somebody that likes to hunt. I mean, you're just talking assault.
You know, people who, and any hunter will tell you, they don't need an assault weapon to go
Oh, yeah.
hunting.
So you're just talking assault weapons.
Yes,
That's what you're talking
and
about.
semi-automatic handguns.
Right.
Which are not required for hunting, and any hunter who has got a hunting license and goes hunting in New England or in the woods of Massachusetts, do not use assault weapons and do not use semi-automatic handguns. And that was a ban that was in effect for 10 years. It lapsed in 2004, was not renewed. And I just think that in the current atmosphere in the United States, that it is certainly imperative that we do something about the issue of gun control. And I would ask for your support and to send a letter in your official capacity as a Board of Selectmen to the Congressman and ask him to do what he can to impose more strict gun controls, and if necessary, to support or initiate a petition to discharge to the floor of the House of Representatives legislation that would do that. So that's my request for tonight.
Can I
Sure.
request something of you, John? Can you put that to us in writing?
Yeah, I
Because
have-
I don't
I
want to
just have
take
a
that,
very-
I mean, this is a pretty involved thing. I don't want to take it up tonight without
No, I just want to
us.
have a quick summary of what.
Okay,
Good, thank you.
maybe we can put it
Don't
off.
put it on the agenda.
Put it
you'll
on
have
the
to come
agenda for the
back.
next meeting, so,
I can tell you one individual who may need an assault weapon to go hunting. That's Leo Donovan. He went hunting and came back with nothing for 3 days.
Well, that's good. That's what most guys do, though. They go out and they hunt, and they have a rifle, they don't find anything, they come back, they have a good time, but they don't need assault weapons or semi-automatics to
That's
go
true.
hunting. So anyway, that's my request.
thank you.
Thank you very much for your
So would
time.
we put this on our next agenda?
Yeah. If
Just in fairness, because it might not be people that, it could be, obviously there's people.
Oh, no, I don't
on
think
both
we're going to
sides
act on it
of the
tonight, only because
No.
it's, yes,
issue.
yes.
That's fair.
We'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting, the 14th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Buckley.
Any other public comment?
Just my question, though, who's going to draft this? Are we,
We can-
John, your
we'll-
office
well-
going to?
Well,
draft
let's see what we want to do before we draft it. I think
Okay.
that's, you know,
Yeah.
it
You
was
need
only
to
brought
vote
to us
first?
tonight, so I think we need to think about
You
what,
want to incorporate it, right?
exactly, right.
I can submit you a draft, and you can edit it if you ask, and then
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll work with the drafter. But I think it's important if you want to
Can
do
you-
something.
Can you keep it to one page?
Listen to him, Tom.
Any other public,
You it won't be one page.
any other public comment?
That's true.
Andy, I have one question.
Ken?
Maybe through John. Have we as a town adopted the policy for remote call-ins for meeting participation? Remember they allowed it, have we adopted it?
Remote,
Remote call-ins for?
remote
meeting
participation in meetings. We
For
did that.
town boards and
a number of-
meetings?
Yes, we did.
We did,
Yeah,
okay, so-
yes. We actually had
It was
some
back initially when it
successful
was.
remote meetings.
I think it was back initially when the regulations came out. We
Well,
adopted
when,
it.
I thought so, I just
The
wanted to
the
make sure.
regulation, if, the Attorney General indicated that if communities had accepted the statute that allowed for participation for zoning board meetings or planning board meetings where the individual missed one meeting, was able to review the contents of that meeting and then continue to vote. If you accepted that provision, you automatically accept the remote legislation provision.
Okay, so we're going to look for a motion to enter into executive session for the purposes of pending litigation and collective bargaining strategies, and not to reconvene to open session. And before we do that, I just want to wish everybody, on behalf of the board, a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays.
So moved.
Yes.
And we need a second. for-
Hanukkah,
second, yes.
Kwanzaa, all the rest.
Okay, by roll call, Tom?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Yes.
I vote yes. Thank you.
I vote no.